It is Xennial Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about how to calculate the maximum damage that you can get from your artifacts and also from your runes. In other words, we're talking about how to make your monsters hit as hard as possible, or if you're looking for a balance between overall tankiness like a crit rate type build, a bruiser, how to get the hardest hitting bruiser build possible. And you know what that means, guys. It's a Xennial Gamer video. It means we're going to be in SWOP today. Now, we'll go back and forth between SWOP and the game, but really what this is a SWOP video, because that's how we're going to find the hardest hitting damage build. So, to start off with, and we are going to talk exactly about how to calculate artifact damage, guys, but to start off with, let's just take Illusion. That's a great example, so we're going to take Illusion. And I've shown this in many other videos, so I'm not going to go into great detail on this, but I am going to talk it through real quick. We're going to want him probably on attack, crit damage, and attack. However, you never know if maybe you just have some crazy high crit damage sub runes, like maybe you have an attack slot 4 rage rune that has a 30 crit rate sub, and you have like 40 crit rate, or well, I guess not possible, 35 crit damage subs on other runes, whatever. It is always possible that a slot 4 attack or a slot 4 crit rate could come into this calculation. It's really unlikely, but it doesn't hurt us to throw them into the optimizer. Now, the odds are that he's going to be on a rage build, but if you're using the Optimizer Pro, not a sponsored video by the way, guys, not a sponsored video, I just have to point out the differences between them. If you're using SWOP Connect or the Optimizer Pro, we really don't have to program in rage. All we actually have to do is exclude Violent Will and Despair, which are the deepest sets that most of us have. You can also exclude Swift, since we're looking for just the hardest hitting damage we have. And then this allows it to look for things like Fatal. This allows it to look for things like Rage. This allows it to look for like Triple Fight, whatever, and compare all of those builds. Odds are it's still going to come back with Rage, but we may as well check. So we're going to come down here, we're going to click no broken sets, because if you put no sets up here and you allow for broken sets, even in SWOP Pro, it's going to take all day, maybe 2 days to run this entire thing. Now we're just going to come down here and delete Surge Depth. So again, if you're using SWOP Pro, you can delete Surge Depth. If you are not using SWOP Pro, you're going to need to set a Surge Depth of like 20 or 30. And then again, if you're not using SWOP Pro, you also want to have focus stats of attack, crit rate, and crit damage. In the SWOP Pro version, we don't need that. We can let it run more overall builds. So from there, the next thing we want to do is click this use filter threshold and then set ourselves up for 100 minimum crit rate, or if you're using a crit rate lead, you might go 76 minimum, but set up whatever your minimum crit rate is. We're going to click the plus 15 right here, and then we click this big button right here that says damage options. We're going to choose his skill 1. We're going to make it ignore defense. And then the rest of this at the moment does not matter. However, a few things will matter later. So first of all, defense doesn't matter because we're just ignoring defense, but enemy element does. So are you building this Lucian maybe for Necro? Then Dark matters. Are you building it for GB12? Then Water matters. Are you building it for Arena? Then Water and Wind both matter, depending on what what rank of arena you're in, what types of defenses you're using them against and stuff like that. So for our purposes, let's just say we're trying to build that GB12 OP Lucian. We're going to go ahead and click on Water. We're going to max out his skill ups, and since it is GB12, we're going to go ahead and just mark this as Kairos Dungeon Giants B12 boss. We're going to assume we're using Lucian's own leader skill, so that's 33% attack, and then the enemy's HP percent. This matters, but at the same time, it's tricky. So Lucian's amputation magic hits 3 times. If we're trying to kill the enemy, we assume we need to do about a third of the enemy's damage with each card, which means that 2 of the cards are going to hit when the enemy has less than 100%. So we actually hit it like 100, and then 67, and then 33, right? So we can just put 50% in here. It's not perfect, but it's a good estimation. At the top, defense break doesn't matter. We're not going to have a brand. We're not going to have an attack buff for this type of Lucian. So we go ahead and just hit close now. Be careful. If you hit apply, it's going to start optimizing. Then the last thing that you would do is make sure that artifacts are disabled. We're going to run artifacts here in a moment. For right now, what we want to do is be able to get the most runes calculated possible in the fastest amount of time. So we're going to disable the artifacts just like we didn't put any sets up here. We're going to run 3 separate searches overall instead of doing it all in one search, and we're going to kind of filter things ourselves. I'm going to go ahead and hit optimize just for a brief second, and I'm going to stop it immediately. I actually don't want to let this run too long, because if you get too many builds, it'll cause SWOP to crash. So it's literally just a second or two, right? And I see builds up here that are over 8,000 damage. So we're gonna go 8,000 damage. Now we're gonna change the rage up to fatal, because we know we can make 8,000 damage per card on rage. We'll go ahead and run this on fatal. You can see this is gonna be a much faster build for me because I have fewer fatal runes. The highest build I can get in fatal is 8109. So that tells me that if I can break 8109 in Rage, then Rage is going to be the set I use. So I'm going to run this again one more time in Rage. And you can see that when I sort by damage, the highest build that came back was a Rage Blade at 8,605 damage. Anyway, we have got our build now. So what we're going to do... there you go, that's actually the build I already have on him, go figure. But we've got our build now, so what we're actually going to do is, if you don't have this build on him already, you're going to go ahead and just click through right here. You come up here to Equip Runes and Artifacts, you're going to go ahead and click on Equip Runes Only. Then you're going to come to the next tab right next to it, you're going to go ahead and click Lock Runes Only. So now we have this build on our Lucian. Now the last step is to figure out artifact damage. So we're going to come over here and you see this section right here that says force these runes to be included in builds. We're going to go ahead and just force the runes that we just put on our Lucian to be included in the builds. We're going to come down here and we're going to go ahead and put in whatever artifact stats we want. So in this case, we know that we probably want flat attack. However, I'm okay with it just running all of them because this is actually going to be really quick. We're going to uncheck the use only artifacts from inventory. Now, if you have some locked artifacts, you could check or uncheck use locked artifacts. It depends on if you want to get like just the strongest hitting Lucian possible or if you want to leave the locked stuff alone. So in this case, we'll go with use locked artifacts. And you can see here, it shows me only 30,000 builds, even though this is running with artifacts. Now, if I ran artifacts and runes together, it's like trillions of builds. But because I actually only have like 800 artifacts, it does not take that long to run it when it's only running artifacts. And that's the benefit of forcing the runes to be included on the monster. So we're going to come down here, we're going to click optimize, and look at that. Like 1 second, and I've got my best artifact builds. And then if I sort by damage, I see that this build right here actually hits for 10,900 instead of 8,500, so I'm getting 2,400 damage from my artifacts. If I click through on it right here, this is why we've got 9% damage from water, additional damage by attack, and then so on, skill 3 crit damage, and so on. So, if you guys are looking for the single highest damage output that you can get off of your build, what you're going to do is run the build on the monster first, the way I just showed you, and then you run the artifacts second and separately after you put the runes on the monster. Makes the whole process way faster. So the reason this stuff matters, by the way, single target ability. Lucian is not single target ability, so he doesn't benefit from the crit damage on single targets. Vigor Shred is. So we want to make sure that we've got single target ability checked. If you're doing this for like your Inugamis that team up, or your Vertihile in a Tricaru team, you would want to make sure that you're checking attack together ability. In this case, the Vigor is not attacking together, so we leave that unchecked. If we care about it more in Guild War, then we could use Guild War buildings, but it's kind of the same thing because it's all point of reference. And then just basically, do you have a defense break? Do you have an attack buff? Do you have a speed buff? All of that stuff. And then are we looking at a guaranteed crit if the monster has a 100 crit rate, or are we looking at the average if the monster does not have a 100 crit rate? So you get all of this stuff in here correct. Make sure you've got the correct enemy element that you're going to be attacking. If you don't know the defense, I usually use 1200. If you're at 1200, to me is like kind of it's like on the high side of what a normal build will be. But if you're in like a C3 or G1 guild, I think 800 to 1000 is a little more normal. I'd always want to go on the higher side, so I just put 1000. But again, it's point of reference. It's not going to change anything because whatever build hits the monster with 1000 defense the hardest will also hit the monster with 1200 defense the hardest. So it's just point of reference to give you an idea of how much damage you're going to do. So we go ahead and hit apply right here, we hit optimize, and then there you go. You can see that in this particular build, my Vigor does, or in these particular artifacts, my Vigor does 7,900. If I resort, 10,700, really big difference there. And that just shows me my best artifacts on the spot. Anyway guys, that's what I've got for you today. As always, I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you remember to subscribe, smash the like button, and leave a comment, and we'll catch you in the next video.